I want to share with you a great article that Bill Cohen wrote for Bloomberg to explain how the average guy gets screwed by the bankers. Now, a lot of you will, if you have any dealings with these bankers, will sign arbitration papers, which means that if you get into a dispute, instead of taking them in court, you must go to arbitration. Now, here's a huge problem with that. The arbitration is done by people appointed by those bankers. Now, from time to time, we'll tell you about that, and we'll say, what a ridiculous system. Of course, they're going to skew it in favor of the banks, and then if you don't play ball, you get removed. Well, the reason I love this article is because Bill found an exact situation where that's totally what happened. So it's the case of Robert Postal. He's from Georgia, and he said that Merrill Lynch, which is now part of Bank of America, had not adequately monitored his accounts, that there was a breach of contract and a breach of fiduciary duty against Merrill. And there were three arbitrators in the case: Fred Pinkney, Eileen Gormley, and Daniel Kolber. Now, they have a great deal of experience between them. Eileen, for example, had over 20 years, I should say, years of experience as an arbitrator. They looked at the case. Now, the banks win an overwhelming percentage of these cases. Golly gee, I wonder how that happens. But in this case, they said no. The person who brought this case is absolutely right, and they gave him $520,000 in damages. So, now, it is at this point that I should tell you that Wall Street gives this institution, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, that's this self-regulatory organization, $1 billion. So those arbitrators work for Finra, and Wall Street gives Finra $1 billion. So let me show you Fred Pinkney, Eileen Gormley, and Daniel Kolber again. They all work for Finra. They are their arbitrators. So what happened shortly after they awarded the $520,000 against the banks? Fred Pinkney, fired. Huh, interesting. Well, Eileen Gormley, also fired. But Daniel Kolber, come on now, also fired. What a wild coincidence. After having a long career with Finra and as arbitrators, and one time that they rule against the banks, well, golly gee, they all happen to get fired. I wonder why that happened. Well, we all know why that happened. It's because they get $1 billion from Wall Street. Of course they're going to rule in favor of Wall Street. And this is how they send a message, not to these guys, but to all the other arbitrators. If you don't do what we implicitly expect you to do, which is to rule in our favor almost every single time, you will get fired. Your kids will not be able to go to college. You won't be able to pay your mortgage. We will fire you and destroy your career. So play ball, and no matter who's right or wrong, always say the banks are right. Now, some of these arbitrators, after they get fired, they say, okay, well, look, I'm going to take my case to the SEC. I've got a whistleblower complaint because obviously they're doing this and they're screwing over all these clients that they're supposed to be giving independent arbitration to. Well, good luck with that. You know why? Current head of the SEC is Mary Shapiro, who used to be the head of Finra. In fact, when she left Finra, they gave her a $9 million exit package. Now, it's one thing to pay her a tremendous amount of money to do whatever the banks tell her to do and not to be fair to the clients at all. It's another thing to get promoted up to the SEC so that you make sure that you got one person who's definitely not going to regulate the banks, who's gotten paid a tremendous amount of money already from the banks and has no interest in regulating them. She built her career on not regulating them. Now, it's another thing entirely to say, hey, in case that message wasn't clear enough, here's a $9 million bribe for things you haven't even done, but as an exit package to make sure that when you go over to the SEC, you continue to play ball so that if you get complaints from other Finra arbitrators, you squash them, you crush them, and you move on. If the banks break SEC rules, much more importantly, oh, hell no, you won't be investigating them. And then shockingly enough, it turns out that the SEC has been incredibly lame in pursuing cases against the top banks. Wow, I wonder why. It couldn't have anything to do with the giant millions of dollars of bribes that they gave to the head of the SEC, could it? Now, I'm sorry. I shouldn't call them bribes. They're perfectly legal. Exit packages. So, you think you're getting a fair hearing if you have to go to arbitration? You think that it's fair for you to give up your rights to go to court and to get an actual independent jury or judge to see it? You think this system isn't rigged against you and in favor of the banks so they make all the money and they crush you in the process? If you think all that, you have no idea what's happening in the United States of America. This is what's happening.